Hello everybody, it is Friday 15th of January and it's time for our last instalment of the week of our book Witch Wars. So today we are on to chapter 10, which is called Feathers. On the way back to Linden House, the wind whipped around them and Tiga tried desperately to study the face of every witch she passed on the street, hoping she'd see someone familiar. Cackles rang out around her and huge wide-brimmed hats shot past. "Are you okay?" Peggy asked as they reached Linden House. There was a squeal as Fran shot out of the letterbox. "Let me see! Let me see!" She screeched to a halt in front of Tiga. "Fabulous," she concluded, before adding, "You're just in time to pick beds." Inside, it was difficult to see anything through all the grey feathers that were floating down in big clumps from upstairs.
"I want that bed! I said this room was mine! Stop eating my pillow!"
"There's been some debate about who should sleep where," said Fran, as an especially large feather soared down and knocked her to the ground. Upstairs, Felicity Bat was levitating along the corridor as Aggie Hoof trotted along behind her.
"Fel, can we sleep in the same room?"
"No."
"What if I promise not to read Toad out loud, Fel?"
"No."
Tiga tugged Peggy's arm. "How does Felicity Bat do that? Is it like the TV spell?"
Peggy rolled her eyes. "Levitating? No, not at all. It's an almost impossible spell. Barely any witches can do it. They say she's gifted." To the right, Molly was in a room hitting Lizzie Beast on the head with a pillow, and Millie was swinging Patty Pigeon around by her pigtails. "Girls," Fran snapped, "the rooms are almost exactly the same. Well, apart from the huge one upstairs." Everyone stopped and stared at Fran. Then, as if someone had hit the play button, they all shot up the stairs, pushing and shoving each other. Tiga, Peggy and Fluffanora watched them go. "There isn't even a bed up there," Fran said with a chuckle. "There might be an angry cat, though." Fluffanora wandered into a room and pressed a hand on the bed to check it was soft enough. "Night, ladies," she said, just as the sound of a furious cat screeching came from upstairs. Fran smiled. "Angry cat," she said. "So very, very angry." Peggy and Tiga wandered along the corridor, slipping on feathers as they went. They decided on two light grey rooms that sat side by side and were connected by a large door. They said goodnight, and for the first time since Fran had marched into the crumbly old shed, Tiga was alone. On her bed was a little box, and in it was a black nightie, a black toothbrush, a black tube of toothpaste, and some foot cream, labelled Flappy Flora's Floral Foot Cream. Tiga curled up in bed, surrounded by the hundreds of portraits of witches that hung on the walls. She wondered if she knew any of them, or if maybe this was all a big mistake, and she wasn't really a witch. Maybe she was the wrong Tiga Wickabim. Her eyes darted from one witch to another and settled on a terrifying one. A lace veil covered her face, and you could just make out the fangs through it. It was just at that moment that Peggy came bursting through the door. "I just realised you might need some extra foot cream. Here, have mine!" she yelled, making Tiga jump. I think I'm okay for foot cream, Pegs." "Oh, okay. It's not actually about the foot cream. Can I sleep in here? There's a load of creepy paintings in my room." She looked to where Tiga was looking. "Oh, your paintings are so much worse. I didn't even think that was possible, but look, it is." Tiga burst out laughing. It was almost a cackle. She patted the bed and Peggy jumped onto it and handed Tiga her tub of foot cream. They don't make that stuff anymore because they realised Flappy Flora's Floral Foot Cream is really difficult to say. Tiga smiled and sniffed the cream. It smelled like flowers and feet. "Sinkville is full of such funny things," she said. "What's it like above the pipes?" asked Peggy as she wriggled under the covers. Tiga thought about it for a moment and said, "Different, but not better. I live with a terrible old woman called Miss Hex. She found me in the sink in her shed when I was a baby. No one knew who I belonged to or where I had come from. So she took me in, but she hates children, and me most of all. I practically live in the shed. It's the only place I can go to get away from her." "That's terrible," said Peggy. "She sounds worse than a bad witch." "Well," said Tiga, pointing at the scary witch painting, "I'm not sure she's worse than that. but I love it here much more than up above the pipes. I want to stay forever." Peggy smiled a sympathetic smile and patted Tiga's arm. "You'll never have to go back. We'll make sure of it. I'll help you learn spells and we can work together to win Witch Wars." Tiga grinned. Witch Wars wasn't so scary with Peggy around. "How many spells do you know?" "Almost 8, said Peggy proudly, "and 4 of them sometimes work." Tiga groaned and slid further under the covers. "Karen!" they heard Aggie Hoof scream. "You sleep downstairs." "It will be cold down there," whispered Tiga. "Maybe we could see if Karen wants to sleep in here with us." Peggy nodded. "Excellent idea." She took out her notebook and Tiga watched as, on the page titled "People Peggy Must Remember to Help," she scribbled "Karen." A bit of hair gunk fell from Peggy's head and splattered on the page, smudging it almost completely. And we're going to read chapter 11 as well today, ours, which is called Tiga Changes Her Mind. Shh, was the noise Tiga woke up to the following morning. Come on, we don't have all day. Well, I suppose we do have all day unless we die, but let's not think about death or take a really long time to get ready, okay? Fran said, zooming around the bedroom. It was a lot for Tiga to deal with at 7 o'clock in the morning. "Downstairs for breakfast, please," said Fran before shooting out of the door. Tiga did up the zip on her bruised dress and adjusted her hat. "Karen!" Aggie Hoof roared from the hallway. "I hope one of you two wins," Karen whispered before scuttling off. Peggy bounded after her. "Come on, Tiga, breakfast!" Tiga was about to run after them when she noticed the witch's face appear in the window. As they were on the 3rd floor, Tiga was pretty surprised to see a face hovering there, and so she squealed. The witch waved, took a photo, and suddenly disappeared. When Tiga peered down, she saw the witch lying in a heap on the pavement on top of a broken ladder, surrounded by about 1,000,000 witches in huge, wide-brimmed hats. All at once, they looked up. "It's the Tiga witch!" someone screeched. "The one from above the pipes!" another cried. Tiga nervously backed away and ran down the corridor. She took the stairs 2 at a time and landed with a thud in the hallway. She followed the clink of forks and the chatter of witches beyond the entrance hall to a large dining room. Fluffanora was already there, picking at a muffin. Peggy was next to her, spilling cereal everywhere. Fran was zooming around, barking orders. "Where is Tiga?" Tiga hid behind the door. "M'mares," Peggy said. "Is that some sort of shop I don't know about?" Fran asked. "Upstairs," Fluffanora said. "Well, I shall go and get her." Fran zoomed past, tutting. It was then that Tiga made her decision. She didn't want to compete in Witch Wars, and so she dived into the empty little sitting room with the flowery sofa. Fran flew into the room, but before she could speak, Tiga raised a hand and said as firmly as she could, "Fran, I am not going to compete in Witch Wars. I'm going to watch it in clutterbucks on the back of a spoon." Fran slumped over in the air and sighed. "I'm afraid you can't do that, dear." She smoothed out the ruffles on her skirt and took a seat in the air. "Either you compete, or I have to take you home." Tiga held onto the sofa to steady herself. It hadn't occurred to her that she'd have to go back to Miss Hex. "I can't stay?" Fran shook her head. "We have to return you after Witch Wars. Well, unless..." "Unless what?" Tiga asked eagerly. "Unless you win and become top witch." Tiga took a step back and plonked herself down on the sofa. Her legs felt heavy. Her heart felt rubbish. Her head felt like it was doing a somersault. She'd completely forgotten the sofa was no ordinary sofa. It flipped round and she found herself sitting in front of the map. She stared at it. "It would be nice if you could stay," Fran said as she appeared behind Tiga. Tiga didn't take her eyes off the map. "Fran," she asked, "who nominated me for Witch Wars?" Fran shrugged. "Oh, they don't tell me that. Not because I'm not important. No, I'm very important. I'm the face of the show. But they don't tell me the finer details." "Who are they?" Tiga asked. "The producers in Bollywood," said Fran. "They organise Witch Wars." "Why?" Tiga's mind was racing. "Whoever put me forward knows me. They know I exist and they think that I'm good enough to win Witch Wars. Maybe they can help me. I must go to Brollywood and find out who nominated me. Fran squealed. You will love Brollywood! Oh, and I can show you around. But first we have to begin Witch Wars. Okay, Tiga said. I'm going to find the witch who nominated me and I'm going to try to win Witch Wars. Anything to stay in Ritzy City. Let's do this, Fran. She marched over to the sofa and sat down confidently. Only this time it didn't flip. It's a bit fiddly sometimes, Fran mumbled, giving it a kick. And that's where we're going to stop, everyone. So when we come back for a story time on Monday, we'll be on chapter 4, which is called Witch Wars Begins. Have a lovely weekend. Bye.